welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minutes, where we'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And on this episode, we're back to start the week out with minute 72 of Jurassic Park 3. But before we get to that, it's been a long time coming. We didn't get to do it at the start of the film, but over at Jurassic-Pedia.com we have the full write-up on Ellie Degler, formerly Sattler, which, again, like we've seen earlier with the Isla Nublar write-up and some of the others, there's been a lot of work done here, a bit of a biography on her role here in Jurassic Park 3, and even just her roles in Jurassic Park as well, and a full pretty much play-by-play of what she had to contribute to the franchise.
Yep, another one of our big rewrites. That one was, I think, of course, done by Trode and Formosus again.
Yep.
We've got to really thank him. And so we're really proud to have all these kind of big rewrites really done on the encyclopedia.
Interesting reading here that the name Ellie is usually a nickname for Ellen. Is Grant the only one that calls her Ellie in Jurassic Park?
I think pretty much everybody calls her Ellie. I don't think I've ever heard her called Ellen in the movies.
Yeah.
Or the book, for that matter.
Which, this is all going to be very interesting, especially with the surname as well. I know one of the biggest issues with with this film with fans is the fact that she's married someone else and not Grant, and with her possible return in Jurassic World 3, I wonder if she's going to keep the Degler name or return to Sattler and be divorced. Knowing Colin, I dare say that's what would happen, but I'd hope they'd try and stay to canon.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that they don't just do another kind of senseless, pointless retcon of just to make the fans happy, you know? I mean, it happened, acknowledge it, don't just have her divorced for the sake of divorce, you know? Even though divorce is such a powerful theme in these movies, you know, it's kind of overplayed at this point.
Well, there's a lead into the kid for Jurassic World 3. We've had the split parents all through these films, and it's always been the child of those split parents, where here now we're going to have Charlie back as Grant and Ellie, or Grant and Mark are split. Mm-hmm. Well, and we discussed at the start of the film where we met Mark and that, how we know, we see in the film that Grant sort of had the PSD and that, and maybe Ellie wanted to do something, but he was having nightmares and some psychological issues because of what happened on Nublar originally, so still, it'd be good to see them both on screen again for Jurassic World 3. But yeah, head over to Jurassic-Pedia.com and check out all the write-up, the full write-up for Dr. Ellie Sattler. Degler.
Ellen, are you on a cell phone? I can't hear you. The river! Hello?
Alright, Dave, ready to go into 72?
Yeah.
As we enter minute 71 of Jurassic Park 3, the Spinosaurus was destroying the rear of the boat, and had punctured the fuel tank at the rear of the boat. As we open on minute 72, the Spinosaur realises the humans are no longer there, and begins to move around towards the front of the boat. It grabs the cage with its large hands, and starts to try to lift the cage off the boat. At the 5-second mark, we cut to the backyard, as Charlie's holding the phone, and Ellie asks, "Who's on the phone?" Charlie replies, "It's the dinosaur man," and Ellie picks him up and walks back inside, taking the phone from him. Back in the cage, Alan yells at everyone to check in the boxes to try and find a weapon. At the 23-second mark, the satellite phone starts to ring again, just after Alan opens a box and the flare gun drops to the floor. He searches around and finds the phone sliding on the side of the boat. He reaches out of the bars and grabs it just before it slides off into the river. Just as he does this, the Spinosaur pulls the cage free of the front of the boat, and suddenly they're sinking into the water. And as the cage is pulled underwater, Alan yells through the phone to Ellie, "The river, Site B, the river," and then he's under, and everyone's holding their breath. At the 47-second mark, we cut back to Ellie as the phone goes dead, and from behind the kitchen table, Charlie holds up his little hands and goes, "Rah, rah, rah." And as the minute ends, we cut back to the river, as the cage is tumbling towards the river bottom, and the Spinosaur's fishing around in the water, trying to find them. As we open on 72, the Spinosaur has made its way to the front of the boat, and as Paul looks out through the barred cage, you can see those massive hands come down and grip either side of it, one on his side and the other one next to Amanda.
I was going to comment on how big that hand is. I mean, that is like, how wide across do you think that is? At least a meter?
Yeah, it'd be 3 feet at least. And
yeah.
we know from earlier in the film, like when it puts those big hands on the plane and that, like it spans across a couple of the windows in the side of the plane. Like this thing hasn't got small arm syndrome like the T-Rex.
No. I mean, these things are like beefy bodybuilder arms.
Yeah.
It's no wonder that the Spinosaurus whacked the head right off the T-Rex animatronic, you know?
Yep.
And just looking at these things, they're big, meaty claws.
Yep. Which is a double purpose too. In the behind the scenes, we can see these. It's just the hands attached to the side of the cage, with the anchor points to tow the cage off the front of the boat later on, and yeah, and that sort of leads to later on when we get it. It's one of the hands fishing around the cage. How it doesn't just cut Amanda in half, but we'll get to that. The Spinosaur pulls the cage and it begins to come free of the boat. Ellie comes into the backyard and finds Charlie standing there holding the phone. So somehow during the whole list, Charlie's ran outside and gone into the backyard, and Ellie hasn't used the front door. She's walked around the side gate, obviously into the backyard again, and finds Charlie standing there. But she asks who's on the phone, and Charlie replies to Dinosaur Man, and excitedly she picks up the phone and says Alan. But inside the cage, Alan looks about himself and he yells, look in the boxes, find a weapon, which up until this point we never knew there was any boxes in the cage. But
no.
There's some stuff in there because they start foraging around in
looks
these boxes.
Looks like a pair of pliers, I don't know, flashlight? I can't really tell what one of the things is.
Yeah, it looks like a blue rubber or plastic flashlight in there as well.
Yeah.
Some sort of silver canister, which could be a fuel filter or something. I've got no idea what that is. But it's an odd assortment of items to be in a box.
Yeah, flare gun, which is important to the plot.
Yeah, yep.
There's always a flare gun.
And a little black bungee strap there as well, which is on the bottom of the cage, whether that's for the cage itself or...
There's 2 bungee straps. There's the black one, and then there's an orange one that's underneath the flare gun.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's just something for production. Because you wouldn't think that rubber would last in the tropics for 8 years, even in the box. It
almost looks like it has a nylon covering on it, you know?
Yeah. But we cut back and Ellie sort of walks inside and redials the phone. It's good here too, while we're looking down at all this stuff on the floor. You can see the battered floor mesh of the cage, which makes it look like it's had animals in it before, and it's been a fairly heavily used cage.
And it's also got that kind of metal grip that looks like it's used for it has a it's like in the tropics you'd want that kind of metal grip for your rubber boots or rubber bottom soles or anything like that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. But then suddenly the phone begins to ring and Alan calls out, "Where's the phone?" Everyone sort of looks about themselves, and Paul sees it sliding along the side of the boat, and everyone makes their way to that side of the cage, and we get half a dozen arms reaching out, everyone trying to grab onto the phone as it slides back and forth. And as they're doing this, we get a look at the front of the boat as the weight shift begins to lift the rear, and those motors start to come out of the water as well. Almost Titanic-ish. But the phone slides right into Alan's hand, luckily, and just as the cage is yanked off the front of the boat and into the river, Grant hits the answer button and immediately says, Ellie, listen to me. And Ellie can't make out what he's saying, but she asks Alan if you're on a cell phone, which we've all had those calls where someone's been on the phone, hands-free or something, with the window down, you just cannot understand what someone's saying at all, with the noise in the background.
Oh, my mom does it all the time. Window open, trying to talk on the speaker of her phone, driving down the highway, can't hear a word.
Well, I have the same issue with a couple of the managers at work talking onto their radios. They've got speakers in there, like earplugs in there, like a ear speaker in, and then the It's like the older hands-free where the microphone's on the cord, hangs down to your chin. And they just sort of push the button and talk without bringing the microphone to their mouth. So you can hear when they're on, because all you can hear is the machinery in the background and the tiny voice, instead of lifting the microphone to their mouth and actually speaking into it so you could hear them properly. So I understand what Ellie's hearing here. But she says, I can't hear you, and we can sort of hear Grant yelling into the phone in the background as she's trying to find out what he's saying, but he just sort of yells the river, and that's when the cage goes under, and it sounds like he's yelling "Save me" here.
No, I think he said the river Site B.
Well, yeah, because that's exactly what he says in the novelisation, which might again just be the just how quick he's got to say it, and maybe the accent coming into it as well, but I'd always thought he was saying "save me," like "save me, Ellie, save me," which is a bit odd, I must admit. But then, I know definitely my worst nightmare of the cage getting pulled in the water and taking everyone underwater with it, and we just get the last shot there as Grant sort of holding the phone to the surface one last time, and then sort of you get that bubbling sound around it, which I don't know if Ellie hears or not, but she sort of has that worried look on her face and yells hello into the phone, and then the disconnecting noise comes across. That's when she looks down at the phone, not sure what just happened, but we look down at Charlie beside that table, and he pulls those clawed hands up and goes "rah," where we know the phone was disconnected after Charlie went looking for Ellie, so I don't know how he heard the Spinosaur at all. It's something added here just because we know what's going on at the river, but Charlie doesn't.
You're right. For some reason, I thought he might have heard the Spinosaurus roaring, but now that I think about it, you're right. I don't think he ever actually did.
Yeah, all that stuff with Grant and Charlie happened before the Spinosaur rammed the boat.
Yeah.
But it sort of just adds to the tension here. But I suppose we can go from Alan's cryptic message, if it is the river Site B, would you be able to join the dots? I know, especially from some of the fan maps and even the topographical map we've got recently of Sauna. It's a what do you call it? What do you call it? No, when there's a lot of rivers.
Estuary?
Yeah, it's almost made up more of water and rivers than what it is of landmass. It's very open when it comes to the rivers running through it.
Yeah, it is.
So it'd be hard for them to find. Maybe when we do get to the coast, that's not the only search party they've sent to a river mouth. Considering we've got the Navy and the Marines there, as spelled out by Eric.
Well, I think what they call it is like it's the main river, that kind of one that splits the island.
Yeah.
So it's not just a river; it's the river.
Yeah. And I suppose definitely if he did say Site B there, it's going to definitely tell. Fair enough. If there's been no animals on Nublar and everything's been focused on Sauna, then should know that it'd be Sauna and not Nublar as well.
Well, people know about Site B now.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if people knew about Isla Nublar, did they?
Well, no. Technically, up until now, if InGen kept it quiet, we know that Malcolm was saying stuff to newspapers and that about the incident. Whether that's all come out after San Diego as well, seeing that InGen was lying about the whole thing.
Or if it was assumed that he was talking about Site B.
Yeah. But then again...
Because there seems to be that confusion in universe, too. When we were talking about Udesky, he's like, wait, there's 2 islands for dinosaurs, or 1?
Yeah.
Or...
Yep.
And they kind of just slipped that past the audience.
Yeah, and then they try and retcon some stuff to Jurassic World, so... Yeah... But even if people knew about Nublar at this stage anyway in the film series, there's nothing left there, so they'll be talking about the island that had the actual dinosaurs on them. And it makes me wonder if Alan actually called Ellie and said, I'm going to there. Because we have that large span of time where the Kirby's are talking to him in the bar. We're going to write all sorts of numbers on this check. And then we cut straight to the plane. We know he gets changed, so he at least goes home to get clothes. He's not kidnapped from the bar, but again, it's just another case where there's a lot of time missing here, where anything could have happened.
Yeah.
But now the cage is in the water and everyone's submerged, holding their breaths. And we brought up back with the aviary, where we had some of the underwater stuff where it was a little bit more cloudy and didn't look as much like a water tank. Here we have the opposite. Like every time we see this cage underwater, it's a brilliant blue crystal clearness. Again, on the behind the scenes, you can see some shots of Joe Johnson himself in there with scuba gear beside the cage as well, just to reassure the actors. Because again, this is all them doing the stunts.
There's kind of a yes, but actually no kind of thing going on with this, because being a rocky bottomed river, yes, that would mean that it would typically be clearer than a mud bottom river. You don't have as much sand or silt or mud flowing through the water. But when it's raining, the water wouldn't be as clear because the water is taking bits of dirt and stuff into the river with it and clouding it up.
Well, especially from the last minutes where we've seen the boat coming down the river towards the dock area, we've seen the canyon walls, and we've seen from back with the aviary just how much water runs down those canyon walls. So yeah, there'd be an influx of water. If the storm come from inland and not from the coast, and all that rain's already fallen inland, so you'd have a rush of water as well come down.
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the river and what the catchment is for it as well. But there isn't even debris in this. There's no little bits of grass or nothing floating around. But we can talk more about that next minute when we get the cage actually hit the bottom of the water, because up above, the Spinosaur appears to have forgotten where it dropped the cage, and it starts rooting around with its nose in the water, trying to fishing around for it. Which again, Stan Winston was saying when he seen that animatronic just head submerged in water, whipping back and forth, he was just amazed at seeing it in action.
You can tell he's just like frantically looking for it, because then you can see it start pushing its arms through the water too, just pawing at the surface of the water.
Yeah, well, it's already tasted human. It knows there's more in there, so but it wants to get to them. But sadly, it's a shot that's replayed a couple of times too, in this minute and in the next minute as well. They reuse the scene, or just the action of it, sort of just moving its head backwards and forwards. And we had the same sort of argument back where Nash was pulled from the plane, where it's clearly one of those animatronic movements of grabbing the leg, swinging left, swinging right, then dropping it to the ground, where, say, the CG model of the Tyrannosaur in Jurassic Park, where it grabs the raptor or it grabs Gennaro off the toilet and does that full shake, like an animal would do to try and kill its prey before it tried to eat it. But going into the script, as the Spinosaur destroys the wheelhouse, Grant stays one step ahead of it, making for the cage on the front of the sinking barge. But suddenly hears the satellite phone ring and spots it on the side of the boat and about to fall in the water, but he dives for it and grabs it. So he gets the phone here before he gets into the cage, and it's also described here as the barge is pretty much sinking. We know from back when they found it, the aviary, that it was already half full of water and not in the best shape already, and just the Spinosaur attacking it and ripping the wheelhouse off has seemed to have been its final nail in the coffin of the barge itself. But Grant answers the phone and says Ellie's name, but she can only hear the Spinosaur roaring, so this is where she sort of hears the roaring sound through the phone, more so than what Charlie would have and what we see in the film. But she says that Alan's name twice, but is cut off by the roar and then the sound of someone screaming. So
it's kind of a mix in the storybook. It's a mix of the movie and this, where Alan yells the river site B, and then the last thing Ellie hears before the phone going dead is the roar of the Spinosaurus, which always confused me as a kid, because I'm like, wait, the Spinosaurus doesn't roar before the phone dies.
And you could also say, well, how does Ellie know that
what it is, she would never have heard the Spinosaur roar, but I think the animal roaring is enough to that
Yeah.
Spinosaur.
Dinosaurs